Do you think witches are just characters from old fairy tales, created to scare children around a campfire? What if I told you there are real cities, mountains, caves, and even memorials where people were tried, condemned, and had their lives destroyed under accusations of witchcraft? Over the centuries, fear of the unseen was powerful enough to turn quiet villages into scenes of collective persecution. Places that now welcome tourists were once the setting of interrogations, forced confessions, and decisions that changed lives forever. In this video, you're going to join me on a rising journey through 10 real places connected to witches. We begin with historic settings marked by religious trials and move toward the most emblematic location of all, where the word witch stopped being folklore and became official record. Stay until the end, because number 1 is the most impactful and carries one of the most well-known episodes in world history. France, Rouen. Rouen, in northern France, is a medieval city known for its Gothic cathedrals and cobblestone streets, but also for trials linked to accusations of heresy and witchcraft. Its reputation in this context is directly connected to the case of Joan of Arc, who was tried there in the 15th century under religious charges that included practices considered deviations from the faith. During the 100 Years' War, Rouen was under English control and became a strategic political and religious center. In 1431, Joan of Arc was brought before a local ecclesiastical court. The trial, preserved in detailed historical records, ended with her public condemnation in the Place du Vieux Marché. Years later, the case was reviewed and declared invalid, becoming a symbol of judicial error driven by fear and political pressure. The historic district includes the central square and medieval stone and timber buildings. Rouen is active and touristic, yet its narrow streets and leaning facades still preserve the atmosphere of that era. Access is open to the public. Walking through the cobbled streets at night, under dim lighting and cool, damp air, creates the feeling of stepping back in time. There are no significant structural risks, only uneven pavement and the region's chilly climate. Documented fact: Joan of Arc's trial is extensively recorded in French historical archives. Popular account: some visitors claim they feel an intense emotional presence in the square where her execution took place, though there is no objective evidence of this. Rouen shows how fear can turn accusations into official decisions that echo for centuries. And if a beautiful tourist city carries such a silent past, the next destination became famous for legends of secret gatherings beneath a tree believed to be magical. Italy, Benevento. Benevento, in the Campania region of Italy, has been called the City of Witches for centuries. Its reputation is tied to a long-standing tradition of nighttime gatherings beneath a walnut tree along the Sabato River. Between the 16th and 17th centuries, during a period of intense religious persecution across Europe, Benevento began appearing in chronicles as a site of supposed occult meetings. The walnut tree became the central symbol of these stories, mentioned in religious texts and popular narratives that helped shape the city's identity. The city has Roman origins and preserves monuments such as the Arch of Trajan and the Roman Theater. Its stone buildings and narrow streets reinforce its historic character. It is not abandoned, but the blend of ancient ruins and persistent legend gives it a mystical atmosphere. Access is urban and simple. At night, silence fills the older streets, and the echo of footsteps beneath stone arches creates an introspective mood. There are no major risks beyond uneven pavement, typical of historic centers. Documented fact: there are historical records of witchcraft investigations in the region, though on a smaller scale than in other European countries. Popular account: according to legend, women would fly to the walnut tree to perform nocturnal rituals, a claim never historically proven. Today, Benevento has embraced this reputation as part of its cultural identity. And if witchcraft here lives mainly in oral tradition, the next place lifts the narrative to the top of a mist-covered mountain, where natural phenomena helped shape a lasting legend. Germany, Brocken. The Brocken, located in the Harz Mountains of Germany, is the highest peak in the region, rising about 3,743 feet above sea level. It is a natural mountain that, for centuries was believed to be the gathering place of witches during Walpurgis Night, celebrated on April 30th. Since the 16th century, the Brocken has appeared in German folklore as the setting for supernatural encounters. The legend gained even more strength when Johann Wolfgang von Goethe mentioned the mountain in his work Faust, portraying it as a site of witches assembling in swirling mist and powerful winds. That literary reference helped transform oral tradition into a lasting national symbol. The mountain is made up of granite rock formations and vegetation typical of cold climates. Today, it is a structured tourist destination with marked hiking trails and even a historic steam train that carries visitors to the summit. The weather is unpredictable, with frequent fog and strong winds capable of changing visibility within minutes. Access can be made either by hiking long trails or by train. At the top, the area is open and exposed, but dense mist often limits visibility, creating a genuine sense of isolation. The main risks involve sudden weather shifts and uneven terrain. Documented fact: the Brocken specter is a scientifically recognized optical phenomenon in which a person's shadow is projected large and distorted onto fog. Popular account: in earlier centuries, travelers believed they were seeing towering supernatural figures in the mist. Today, the Brocken hosts annual Walpurgis Night festivals, turning old legend into cultural celebration. And if a mountain shaped by fog and wind could inspire such powerful imagery, the next location preserves the names of real people who faced consequences under accusations of witchcraft. Norway, Steilneset Memorial. In Vardø, in the far north of Norway, the Steilneset Memorial marks one of the most severe periods of witchcraft persecution in the country. It is a modern memorial built to honor individuals accused and executed between 1621 and 1663. During those decades, it is estimated that around 90 people were condemned in the Finnmark region. Many of the accusations arose in a context of extreme climate, deep religious influence, and collective fear. A series of trials linked violent storms and natural disasters to the alleged actions of witches, fueling widespread panic in a small, vulnerable community. The memorial, inaugurated in 2011, consists of a long elevated wooden corridor with 91 illuminated windows, each representing a documented victim. Beside it stands an artistic installation featuring a symbolic eternal flame. Access is public. The structure is built from wood and glass, simple yet striking, and fully exposed to the constant Arctic wind. The cold air and the steady sound of wind moving through the corridor create a quiet but powerful experience. Documented fact: the trials are preserved in Norwegian historical archives. Popular account: some visitors report feeling a strong emotional weight while walking through the corridor at night, a reaction often linked to the gravity of the history represented there. The Steilneset Memorial is not a ruin, but a space of remembrance. It transforms a history of fear into lasting reflection. And if here we see names permanently engraved in memory, the next location preserves objects that reveal how witchcraft was interpreted in an isolated North Atlantic nation. Iceland, Museum of Icelandic Sorcery and Witchcraft. Located in Hólmavík, Iceland, the Museum of Icelandic Sorcery and Witchcraft is dedicated to the country's 17th century folk magic traditions. Unlike much of Europe, where most of the accused were women, in Iceland the majority of those condemned for witchcraft were men, making this case unique within the broader European context. Between 1625 and 1685, around 20 people were executed in Iceland under accusations related to magical practices. The turning point came with the influence of Danish law, which intensified legal persecution in a small, isolated, and deeply religious society. The museum operates inside a modest building in the center of the village. Its compact rooms display grimoires, magical symbols, historical explanations, and reconstructed artifacts. One of the most well-known exhibits is a replica of the so-called necromancy pants, based on historical texts describing specific Icelandic ritual practices. Access is open to the public, with visitors moving through small, dimly lit rooms. Hólmavík itself is a remote coastal village, surrounded by mountains and cold sea, reinforcing the sense of geographic isolation that once shaped these events. Documented fact: the trials are recorded in Icelandic historical archives. Popular account, some visitors believe certain symbols on display still carry spiritual energy, though there is no scientific evidence to support this. The museum transforms a past of persecution into education and preservation. And if this journey through real places connected to witches is keeping you engaged, make sure to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell, because from here on, the stories become even more intense. England, Museum of Witchcraft and Magic. In Boscastle, in Cornwall, England, the Museum of Witchcraft and Magic is one of the largest institutions in Europe dedicated to the history of witchcraft. Unlike towns directly marked by trials, its connection to witches lies in the preservation of objects, documents, and traditions associated with magic over centuries. Founded in 1951 by Cecil Williamson, the museum was created to collect artifacts related to British folk magic, pagan practices, and historical periods of persecution. Over the decades, its collection expanded significantly, incorporating rare manuscripts, ritual tools, protective charms, personal letters, and authentic historical documents. This growth established the museum as an important reference point for researchers and visitors interested in the cultural history of magic. The building is a traditional stone structure near the small harbor of Boscastle. Inside, the rooms are compact and carefully arranged, with focused lighting that highlights each artifact. The enclosed, quiet atmosphere filled with symbolic imagery creates a strong sense of immersion. Access is public and organized, with visitors moving through narrow corridors lined with display cases. There are no structural dangers, but the dense layout and dim lighting enhance the experience. Documented fact, the museum houses original materials connected to witchcraft trials in Britain. Popular account, some visitors report subtle temperature changes or unusual sensations in certain rooms, though these experiences remain subjective. Boscastle turned a once feared subject into a place of study and preservation. But if here witchcraft is contained behind glass displays, the next location is an entire village that once faced the weight of collective accusations. Italy, Triora. Triora, in the Liguria region of Italy, is often referred to as the Italian Salem. In 1587, during a severe famine that struck the region, local residents began accusing several women of causing misfortune through witchcraft, triggering one of Italy's most significant episodes related to the subject. Historical records indicate that dozens of individuals were investigated by religious authorities, and some faced harsh punishments following formal interrogations. The turning point was the food shortage itself, which intensified fear and fueled the search for someone to blame during a time of desperation. The medieval village is built almost entirely of stone, with narrow alleyways, steep staircases, and tightly packed houses climbing the mountainside. Structures associated with the interrogations are still referenced in local historical accounts and modern guided tours. Access is open, and Triora receives visitors throughout the year. Walking through its tight passages and sloping streets creates a sense of confinement. Surrounded by mountains, the village feels geographically isolated, especially in the late afternoon when shadows stretch across the stone walls. Documented fact, the trials of 1587 are preserved in Italian historical archives. Popular account, locals speak of unexplained footsteps and sounds in areas once linked to detentions, though these stories remain part of oral tradition. Triora transformed a period of fear into a defining part of its cultural identity. And if famine and panic reshaped an entire village, the next location is a hill in England, where accusations became one of the country's most famous witch trials. England, Pendle Hill. Pendle Hill in Lancashire, England is a natural hill closely associated with the witch trials of 1612, one of the most well-known cases of witchcraft accusations in English history. The site has become a symbol of a time when religious tension, local disputes, and fear of the unknown collided. In 1612, 12 people from the surrounding area were accused of practicing witchcraft following a chain of denunciations within the community. England at the time had strict laws against magical practices. 10 of the accused were ultimately convicted after a formal trial in Lancaster. The turning point was the acceptance of weak and questionable testimony as legitimate evidence, which accelerated the convictions. Pendle Hill rises about 1,827 feet above sea level and dominates the surrounding landscape. There are no historic structures at the summit, only open fields and low vegetation stretching toward the horizon. Access is through inclined hiking paths that gradually isolate visitors from nearby towns. On windy or foggy days, the climb feels especially exposed and quiet. The main risks involve uneven ground and sudden weather changes common in the region. Documented fact: the 1612 Pendle trials are extensively recorded in English historical documents, including detailed court accounts. Popular account: some hikers say they feel watched during the ascent, an impression influenced by the hill's reputation rather than verified evidence. Pendle Hill stands as a lasting reminder of how fear can reshape justice. And if an open hill can carry such historical weight, the next place on this list is a natural formation where authorities once believed secret gatherings truly took place. Spain, Zugarramurdi Caves. In the small village of Zugarramurdi, in the Navarra region of Spain near the French border, a series of natural caves became the center of one of the most famous witchcraft cases in Spanish history. The events reached their peak in 1610, when the Spanish Inquisition intervened and turned local accusations into a widely publicized trial. Historical records indicate that dozens of people were accused of participating in nocturnal gatherings known as aquelarres, allegedly held inside or near the caves. Following formal investigations, several individuals faced severe punishment. The turning point came when the Inquisition brought the case to a public trial, amplifying fear and spreading the story across the region. The caves themselves are large, with wide stone entrances carved naturally by erosion. Inside, the air is cool and damp, and the curved rock walls allow sound to echo in a way that feels almost theatrical. Today, the site is protected as a cultural landmark and includes a museum dedicated to explaining the historical events. Access is open to visitors through marked trails leading to the main entrances. The ground can be slippery due to constant humidity, but there are no major structural risks. The atmosphere, however, remains striking, especially when the caves are quiet. Documented fact: the 1610 trials are preserved in the archives of the Spanish Inquisition and continue to be studied by historians. Popular account: locals speak of unusual echoes and sensations of presence within the galleries, though there is no scientific evidence to support these claims. Zugarramurdi transformed a painful episode into a preserved part of its cultural identity. But no place in the world became as permanently linked to the word witch as the final location on this list. United States, Salem. Salem, Massachusetts, is the most iconic location associated with witch trials in world history. In 1692, more than 200 people were accused of practicing witchcraft, and 20 were executed following official court proceedings. The context involved strict religious beliefs, internal community conflicts, and a climate of collective fear. The turning point came when the court accepted questionable testimony, including spectral evidence, as valid proof. That decision accelerated the accusations and intensified the panic throughout the colony. Today, Salem preserves several historical sites connected to the events, including memorials dedicated to the victims, the old burial ground, and buildings associated with the trials. The Salem Witch Museum was created to present the historical context and explain how the crisis unfolded. The city is fully structured for tourism, especially during October when visitors arrive in large numbers. While the streets are lively, certain historical spots maintain a quiet, reflective atmosphere. There are no structural dangers, but the emotional weight of the history is evident. Documented fact: the Salem trials are widely recognized by historians as a classic example of mass hysteria and judicial failure. Popular account: some visitors report feeling a heavy or intense atmosphere at specific historical sites, an experience that remains subjective and personal. Salem transformed one of the most dramatic episodes in witchcraft history into a permanent space of remembrance and education. After traveling through villages, mountains, caves, and memorials shaped by fear, it becomes clear that the word witch left very real and lasting marks on the map of the world. From medieval cities to mist-covered mountains, from natural caves to silent memorials, we've seen how the fear of witchcraft left tangible marks across different countries and cultures. These places are not just tourist destinations. They are reminders of moments when fear overpowered reason and accusations reshaped entire communities. They are not just walls, landscapes, or museums. They are real traces of what happened there and of what people were once afraid to question. Would you have the courage to visit any of these places? Which one impacted you the most? And what other real location connected to witchcraft should appear in a future video? If you enjoy content based on real history and documented mystery, make sure to leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. That support helps the channel grow and ensures I can keep bringing you videos with this same style and depth every week.